Thanks, Matt. Great to be here. I just want to acknowledge first, before I start, that I think I just want to commend Michelle for this format and for trying to stir things up a little bit. There's a little pressure on us today to sort of pull off this MVP talk concept. We're going to rise to the challenge, Michelle. But I just want to make sure that I appreciated you for making this happen. So, I spend a lot of time talking about Stonyfield when I come and speak. And it's something I'm really proud of. Our mission is something that is 30 years old. I hold very dear. You all have heard this story many, many times. So today I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Stonyfield, but I am going to talk about something that's really important to us at Stonyfield, and that's climate change. And that's our response as businesses to addressing the challenges of climate change in this century. And it really is a numbers game, and you'll see what I mean in a second. But let me start by getting you grounded in some numbers that are near and dear to me at Stonyfield. We at Stonyfield have a lot of goals. We have a 100% renewable energy goal. We have a true zero waste goal, meaning zero waste. We want to have zero waste coming out of our facility if we achieve the goal that we've set for ourselves. That means no waste to landfills, no waste to incinerators, and we're working on that every day. I'm really proud to be able to say that that last month we hit a 90% recycling rate at our facility in Londonderry. So it's something that we're really committed to. Since we started a very focused work on our zero waste efforts in 2006, we've been able to improve our recycling rate by 51% over that period of time. Since 1997, we have avoided sending 34 million pounds of trash to landfills and incinerators as a result of our efforts. When we started our focus campaign about 6 years ago, we used to send about 6 dumpsters of trash out of our facility every week. Now we only send 1. For every cup of yogurt that you eat, that you consume, that we make about 1.03 grams of trash. That's about the weight of a paperclip. We recover and recycle about 3 times as much material as we throw away. We have a great program, sort of best-in-class extended producer responsibility program with our partner Preserve in Waltham, Mass, to recover polypropylene at some of our retail partner locations. We've collected about 12 million polypropylene, number 5 polypropylene yogurt cups since we started the program, enough to make about 7.4 million toothbrushes. You may have seen the Preserve toothbrushes that are made from our yogurt cups. Something we're really proud of. Another thing that we do that I'm really excited, that I really think is fantastic, is that every year we do an annual waste audit. We encourage our employees to go and follow a truck of trash out of our facility to a transfer station where the trash is dumped out on the floor, and we sort through the trash and figure out what's actually making it out of our facility. What are the things that we're missing? And over the period of time that we've been doing these annual waste audits, we've been able to identify large quantities of liquid yogurt in our trash, for example, that need to be recovered. We now have a depackager at our facility, so if we ever have any yogurt that can't be sold, can't leave the facility, we can depackage it and recover the yogurt and the packaging. And it's allowed us to be very focused on those kinds of activities. And I think it's also been very iconic in our focus environmental efforts, our mission action program, because it really is a perfect example of how our employees can actually play a part in all that we're trying to do. And it's all focused on getting us to zero, true zero. So enough about Stonyfield. I may say something in the end about Stonyfield again, but we'll see. I'm going to shift to another number. These are numbers that are important to us at Stonyfield, but there's another number that I want to share with you. This is the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii, and you may have heard on May 9th of this year, a reading was collected there for the first time ever of 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This is a location far from sort of the industrial centers of our country, far from where carbon dioxide emissions are really happening at any large scale, a great reference site, in other words. And the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that was collected at that location was 400 parts per million. This is a huge number. I mean, we haven't seen a number that large, 400 parts per million, since the Pliocene era, 5 million years ago. Sea levels were 50 to 82 feet higher then during that time when we saw levels this high than they are today. To put it in context, we haven't seen levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere higher than 300 parts per million in 800,000 years. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, we were at 280 parts per million. When readings began at Mauna Loa in 1958, the first readings were 315 parts per million. This number is 22 points higher than it was a decade ago. So all this is to say, we are creating a situation that is driving us toward a future that I think we all don't want. We're pushing our way toward a level of climate disruption that our planet really hasn't ever seen. And most people are saying that we can hit 450 parts per million in the next couple of decades. So it's a big wake-up call for us. I'm not here to scare you, but I'm here to sort of to put the number out there and say, let's talk about what we need to do about this. What this number actually means. I mean, some of you may have heard people like Bill McKibben and others talking about 350 parts per million as being the level that we need to return to in order to sort of maintain a level of stability in the climate. And so we're well above that. So I want to talk about changing your perspective. So stare at that picture for a little bit. See if you can just let your mind bend a little bit around that picture. This is a picture from Hurricane Sandy back in October. Yeah, he's holding himself up. He's got strong biceps. I think storms like Hurricane Sandy. I hopefully, and I'm not going to sit here and say, you know, the storms that we're seeing, the temperatures that we're seeing are directly related to climate readings, climate change that we know today. But what I do believe we're seeing is a level of disruption in our climate system that is happening at an alarming rate. Hurricane Sandy was a gigantic storm that disrupted the operations of 23,400 businesses, representing about 245,000 employees, people that work in companies just like all of your companies. As of March, 20% of the businesses that stopped operating as a result of the storm were still not operating. 95% of the businesses that were affected, taxi companies, small businesses, 95% of the businesses that were affected by Hurricane Sandy were small businesses, had 50 employees or less. So these storms like Sandy are going to have an impact on business in a way that I think we haven't really thought about. We haven't really anticipated. $25 billion. The impact in New York alone was $25 billion. But what I want to go one step further is to say is that there you see the eye of Sandy moving up the coast back in October. The impact of that storm was $62 billion, and that's New York, New Jersey, all over the Mid-Atlantic. That's the second biggest storm in U.S. history after Katrina. Inflation adjusted, the impact from Katrina was about $128 billion to the economy. And projections, based on some of these numbers that we're seeing, these rising concentrations of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that are going to affect temperatures, that are going to affect sea level, that are going to create bigger and harsher storms, the predictions are that we could have as many as 5 Katrinas per decade. That's enormous. And so you start doing the math and putting the numbers together, and you realize this is not just about someone like me or anybody else in this room who believes in sort of the moral imperative of climate change, but it's really about how we think about our businesses and what kind of environment we want our businesses to operate in. I think, you know, when you think about 5 Katrinas per decade, I think we've seen one of those storms this week in Oklahoma. I mean, that's a gigantic, some have said it's the biggest tornado we've ever seen. This is again, not about preaching, not about moral imperatives, although I believe in that, but about how we operate our businesses. So what I want to do is talk about something that we all can get involved in. And this is meant to be an eye chart. I'm going to break it down for you in a second. But we at Stonyfield are members of something called BICEP. It's a coalition of companies, businesses for innovative climate and energy policy. It was started by Ceres out of Boston. And it's an organization of companies that believe that we need immediate action at a federal government level to address climate change. And it's been a tough few years. It's been a tough few years to get the attention of people in Congress, to get the attention of our elected officials to address this issue in a meaningful way. We see the world, we see the growth of economies that are emitting incredible amounts of carbon dioxide as their economies grow in China and India and other places, and we're hesitant to sort of want to take a leadership role in this and address this issue in a way that I think is becoming of who we are as Americans, because the economic environment has been so difficult. But this is a group of businesses that believe that there's no time like now. We have to actually deal with these issues because we actually are talking about business continuity. We're not just talking about sort of future generations. We're talking about sort of impacts to business now. So we're focused on, as a coalition, tackling climate change. Tackling climate change is one of America's greatest economic opportunities. We have to do this. I'm not going to make you read this, but this is about innovation. This is about leadership. This is part of the declaration. This is saying companies can sink their teeth into this issue and create opportunities in their businesses, create jobs like we've done at Stonyfield to sort of to avoid costs that allow us to put money back into our business as a result of these kinds of efforts, and really be the leaders on the international stage. This is not companies just like Stonyfield or just like Seventh Generation or just like all the companies that you consider to be usual suspects. These are companies like Adidas. These are companies like Unilever, an enormous multinational company. Companies like Nestle, another tremendous company. Companies like L'Oreal. These are the brands that you know and interact with on a regular basis. Not to mention some very unusual suspects like major sports teams that are getting involved in this coalition. We actually, just as of May 1st, if you can believe this, General Motors was the first car company to sign on to this declaration, this climate declaration, to say we need immediate action now. That we launched this on April 10th and have been making calls, have been reaching out to Congress people, trying to build energy for this declaration in the marketplace to get more companies to join us. And so I'd encourage all of you to consider learning more about this declaration. You can sign on as an individual, you can sign on as a company, and be a part of this. Right now, we have gotten 206 companies to sign on. This represents $350 billion in revenue, 400,000 employees, and we need more. We want more companies to be a part of this. So I'd really encourage you to consider this and encourage you to think about the fact that this is something that we have to be concerned about as businesses, because I think when you think about storms like Sandy, think about storms like Irene, think about this tornado that just hit Oklahoma, these are the impacts to our economy are going to be extraordinary. I want to end with one final number, and the number is 1. We have one planet, one Earth, and again, whether we decide to tackle climate change and deal with climate change because it's deeply part of our conscience, whether it's because we care about our kids or our grandkids, there's no room for any debate. My point here is that we have to focus on this issue because it's important for all of our businesses, and I'd encourage all of you to think about that and consider that when you think about what it means to be a socially responsible company. Think about your employees. Think about the footprint that you as a company have, the impact that you have in the communities where your employees live and work, and get involved. So, thanks.